All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a seriously chilling journey into the realms of the unknown. We're going to break down the real truth behind terrifying local folklore, unexplained urban encounters, and these wild internet mysteries that completely defy logic. We're going to systematically explore how different environments, from isolated mountain ranges to the digital frontier, hide entities and dangers that are incredibly real to the people who experience them.
So, have you ever felt an unseen force? Just set aside everything you think you know for a second. Have you ever been completely alone, yet felt a distinct presence watching you, like you just knew someone was there? What we're looking at today establishes a genuinely terrifying pattern. We constantly interact with unseen boundaries, and whether that's a sacred border in a dense forest or a hidden line on the internet, crossing these boundaries always has consequences.
Which brings us to Section 1, Mountain Protectors, Banshira.
Our first entity is the Banshira. Now, this isn't just some campfire tale to scare kids. In the local culture of Himachal Pradesh, this is an established law of the land. The Banshira is this massive, giant entity, often manifesting alongside wild dogs or even a wolf-like creature. And it exists for one reason: to protect the mountains, the trees, and the local wildlife. The rule is simple, right? If you respect the mountain, the Banshira protects you. But if you disrespect it, well, you become the hunted.
It's actually dangerously easy to cross these boundaries without even realizing it. Our source material details a road trip taken by two young guys on a Yamaha RX-100 bike, riding through the foggy mountains of Himachal. They pulled over to fix a greasy bike chain. Right next to them was a tree tied with a faded red chuni, which is a sacred piece of cloth tied by locals to appease spirits or sometimes to remember those who died on that treacherous stretch of road. Unaware and honestly just careless, one of the guys pulled that sacred cloth off the tree, wiped his thick black bike grease all over it, and shoved it into his pocket, thinking he'd just toss it later. Literally, that single act of defilement triggered a massive supernatural response.
As they kept riding through this heavy mountain fog, they noticed a massive wolf-like shadow pacing them on the mountainside. The father, who was driving, desperately tried to explain it away using scientific logic, just saying it's their headlights casting weird shadows against the rocks, but the supernatural reality was absolutely undeniable. This giant entity, which was soon joined by the massive figure of a man, the Banshira itself, was seamlessly matching the exact speed of their motorcycle. And get this, there was no road where the entity was running, just sheer cliffs and dense trees. Yet it kept up effortlessly. No way, right?
So how do you actually survive an ancient curse like that? Well, the guys sought help from a local priest, and he immediately recognized the duality of these spirits. To survive, they had to follow two strict steps. First, tie the defiled chuni to a rock and leave it exactly at the boundary of a local temple. Second, offer a sincere, heartfelt apology to the local gods for disrespecting the mountain. By leaving that cursed object right at the temple's edge, they successfully transferred the spiritual jurisdiction, basically leaving the anger of the Banshira behind.
Moving on to Section 2, the Rakandar of Goa.
Now, this entity perfectly highlights that rule of duality I mentioned. To the locals of Goa and the Konkan region, the Rakandar is a divine protector, a really powerful guardian of the fields, the forests, and the villages. But to outsiders who don't understand the rules, the Rakandar is perceived as a terrifying demon. Our source recounts the story of an outsider from Ahmedabad who moved to Goa for work. He stumbled upon this broken local shrine that happened to have an expensive silver nameplate. So he took a photo, posted it on Facebook, and openly mocked the locals for their hypocrisy.
Almost the moment he posted that, his local coworkers gave him this chilling warning: Rakandar will come after you. They practically pleaded with him to take the post down, explaining that you absolutely cannot mock the sentiments of the Goan land without facing the protector. But rooted in his own modern arrogance, the outsider completely refused to listen, just brushing it all off as primitive superstition. Fast forward a bit, he's riding his Royal Enfield down an empty, pitch-dark Goan road when he hears a sound piercing right through the roar of his engine. It was a rhythmic jingling, like a heavy wooden staff adorned with gungru bells striking the asphalt. He looks up and sees an 11-foot-tall figure, this towering Baba in traditional garb holding a massive staff. The giant entity simply pointed a finger, warning him to turn back. But instead of retreating, the outsider arrogantly revs his bike and drives straight toward it. In a split second, he hit an invisible wall of force that sent him flying through the air.
And this brings us to what I think is one of the most uniquely terrifying punishments in all of folklore. The Rakandar doesn't usually kill. Its punishment is pure psychological horror. It erases time. The outsider woke up in a hospital bed with zero memory of the crash. His coworkers had to inform him that 10 full days had passed.
For 10 days, he was literally a ghost. He would occasionally appear in his hospital bed, then completely vanish from existence, entirely invisible to the doctors and even his loved ones. His punishment for seeing but ignoring local traditions was to be made completely unseen to the world.
All right, let's head into Section 3, the mysterious hospital nurse.
We are not dead. This haunting quote comes from a famous EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon, recording taken at the abandoned Linda Vista Hospital back in 2010. It perfectly establishes that heavy, depressing, and just deeply haunted energy that saturates medical wards, where all that immense suffering and death leave these permanent echoes.
Consider this dreadful timeline from a crowded government hospital in Ahmedabad. The son of a patient was keeping a vigil by his father's bed. On day 1, at 3 a.m., he watched a nurse silently approach bed 11, massage the patient's legs, and leave. By morning, that patient was dead. On day 2, the exact same nurse visited bed 5, and again, by morning, that patient was dead. Every single time this nurse sat by a bed, the patient passed away. The pattern was absolutely undeniable. Then, on day 6, the son turned around to see this harbinger of death sitting right next to his own father.
You can imagine the son was just paralyzed with fear. This nurse never spoke a single word. She wore an outdated 15-year-old vintage uniform with a belted waist that modern hospital staff literally no longer used. When he tried to ask the other ward nurses about her, they would stammer. They were physically unable to speak the words, but kept hinting that she wasn't who he thought she was. She was an absolute anomaly in that ward.
But here is where we totally flip the horror on its head. Terrified that his father was going to die, the son eventually fell asleep holding his hand and had a really vivid vision. He believed she was a Grim Reaper, right? But her true intention was entirely different. Years ago, this exact same nurse had quit her job in absolute grief because she had taken a few days off and wasn't there to comfort her favorite patients when they passed away. So, in death, her spirit returned to the hospital, not to kill, but out of a deep, deep sense of duty. She wanted to provide comfort and massage the limbs of lonely souls in their final scary moments. She wasn't bringing death at all, she was bringing peace. And the craziest part? The next morning, the son woke up to find his father's health miraculously improving.
Which takes us to our final stop, Section 4, the terror of dark web.
Take a look at this number, $1,250. This is the massive amount of easy money two bored teenagers, Jim and Dwight, made during their summer vacation. They had stumbled onto this really clean, professional-looking dark web leaderboard site. It wasn't covered in typical creepy, edgy imagery. It just offered cash rewards for completing specific real-world tasks and uploading the video proof. It just seemed like free money.
The tasks were sequential, and honestly, seemed pretty harmless at first. Task 1, go to a grocery store aisle and scream into a specific CCTV camera. They did it, uploaded the phone video, and instantly received $250. Task 2, go to a park bench at night, pick up a mysterious leather bag that felt like it had something moving inside, and deliver it to a porch. That one netted them $1,000. Task 3 was simply photographing a house at night. They were getting pulled deeper and deeper into this web of easy money, completely unaware of the trap closing around them.
Then, their entire illusion of control just shattered. When Jim checked the website's leaderboard to see the video of their first task, the video uploaded wasn't the footage they took on their phone. Nope. The video on the dark web was the direct feed from the grocery store's internal CCTV camera. Someone with deep, terrifying access to local security systems was watching them from the other side of the lens. They weren't players in a game anymore. They were the pawns.
The climax of this whole digital nightmare happened during the second task. As they were delivering that moving bag, a notification on their phone instantly changed the instructions. Put it in a post box instead of on the porch. The very moment Jim shoved the bag in, a car pulled up. A man in a trench coat got out, collected the bag, and before driving away, he didn't look at Jim standing right in front of him. Instead, the man turned and waved directly at a distant tree in the dark, which was exactly where Dwight was secretly hiding to record the drop. Which leaves us with this deeply unsettling question. Who was really behind the screen, pulling the strings? Whether it's the ancient Bon Shira guarding a mountain, the Rockandar erasing you from existence, a phantom nurse completing her rounds, or an unseen hacker manipulating teenagers like literal puppets, the boundary between our safe reality and the unknown is dangerously thin. So the next time you feel an unseen force watching you, ask yourself, are you absolutely sure you're alone? Thanks for exploring this with me today, and keep questioning the unseen.